Pukovski is under tremendous pressure. From all sides, the enemy is showering bombs and drones, trying to trap the Ukrainian armed forces. Kremlin generals are obsessed with encirclement, while Ukrainian defenders are sounding the alarm. The danger is already very close. Will we be able to hold the city and break the Kremlin's plan? Details are coming up in the report.
Covered in nets and almost deserted. This is the anti-drone route from Kramatorsk to Pokrovsk. But even such protection does not save 100%.
It's okay, no one cares. I don't have any. It's just on the car, right? Oh. And so, we'll catch up.
Enemy drones are in the air and Russian soldiers are attacking on the ground. The approaches to Pokrovsk are constantly shaking. The paratroopers of the 25th are covering the Russians.
Yeah. They basically are lying low right here under the tree. And most likely right here in the greenery, that bastard is holding the crosshair. Executioner, try tossing into the bushes from here, right at the crosshair. Aim more to the left, to the left, behind the tree.
These are the remains of the village of Lysivka. There's nothing left of the settlement but ruins, but the Russians are still trying to get in here and gain a foothold.
We understand that Lysivka is also a route toward Pokrovsk. We're holding our line, no matter what happens on the right or left. We have a mission, and we're carrying it out. Yes, it's tough, but we believe in what we're doing. We're taking every possible measure, using everything together, and that's why we're able to hold back the enemy.
Over the past year, the enemy has tried every tactic here, the paratroopers say. They've attacked with armored vehicles and motorcycles, but they haven't broken through the defensive line. That's why now the enemy mostly throws waves of infantry at us.
There he is, standing behind the tree, and here comes an FPV drone flying in. He reloaded, and bam, right next to his head. And that's it. His helmet flew off. His head was pierced.
And in these shots, you can see the Russians bringing in their infantry on vehicles for new attacks. But they didn't survive to carry out their planned assault. They only managed to disembark.
They are now starting to slowly dismount. They are carefully dismounting. They are taking their time.
The surrounding fields are full of craters, burned out vehicles and Russian corpses. But even in broad daylight, knowing they're in the sights of our drones, the enemy still moves around.
So right now we've just spotted 2 Russian individuals walking down the road, and then they basically hid themselves within the ruins of a structure. Our skilled pilots will now attempt to effectively flush them out of that location, basically to completely and utterly destroy them. No live stream, kind of, with a backup chorus.
Is that going to be a thermobaric, right?
No, it'll be something like a lighter.
Yeah.
All right, let's truly try it now. Well, let's attempt to set it completely on fire.
The pilots are directing their drones at the enemy's lair. The ruins are smashed with FPV drones, and to make sure the Russians don't survive, they even roast them.
So, will the mortarmen be working now, right?
Yes, the 87th mortar.
The mortarmen are also targeting enemy personnel. 2 more occupiers have just been spotted on the outskirts of the village. They're trying to hide in the thickets.
At first they were near the tree, then they went to ground. And most likely they're lying in that spot over there.
Drones are scanning, and the mortarmen are shelling.
Now, they have developed a rather new and distinct tactic, so to speak, using bait. That is to say, they strategically send in approximately 3 or 4 individuals who then proceed to move, let's say, through densely populated areas, often blending in with the general populace. Accordingly, our position reveals itself and starts firing. At the same time, an enemy scout is hovering with them, and in this way they pinpoint where our positions are.
Realizing that breaking through the defenses near Lysivka and advancing directly to Pokrovsk won't work, the enemy is trying to wear down our defensive forces. At the same time, they are looking for weak spots on the flanks and trying to bypass the city.
The enemy is almost religiously determined to capture something. They absolutely do not need the city for living in or for what they truly call liberation, not for the actual people. These are just typically occupied territories, nothing more, nothing less. So they don't need the city at all because they simply wipe it out, they destroy it along with its people.
Enemy saboteurs also occasionally sneak into the city itself, but they haven't managed to gain a foothold there. Reporting from near Pokrovsk, Ole Kornienko, Zakhar Komak, Fakti ICTV, United News.
A devastating blow to the Russian railway. The occupied territories are gradually being cleared of the Russian horde. The Ukrainian armed forces ran out of patience and struck the enemy in several locations at once. Kremlin soldiers are trying to fight back. But what a mess! Even the famed Molniya has lost control of the situation. Fireworks in the sky. No, this isn't a celebration, it's a farewell to Russian drone supremacy. These shots are simply mesmerizing. Don't miss them right now.
In the Zaporizhia direction, Ukrainian drones delivered a powerful strike against Russian logistics. A fuel train was blown up between the occupied town of Urozhain and Tokmak. As reported by Mariupol mayor's advisor Petro Andriushchenko, the train derailed, after which it was finished off with everything that could fly. Effectively, the railway connection for the Russian army through the occupied part of Zaporizhia region was paralyzed. The strike was carried out by the UAV battalion Ronins from the 65th Separate Mechanized Brigade. Meanwhile, the situation at the front remains tense. According to Deep State, the enemy has advanced in the area of the Serebryanske forestry in Luhansk region and near the settlement of Olhivska in the Zaporizhia direction. Taking advantage of identified weaknesses in the defense, if these areas were previously considered relatively stable, now the enemy is trying to exert pressure. The most difficult situation remains in the Pokrovsk direction. Over the past day, Ukrainian soldiers have repelled 50 assault attacks here in the areas of Volodymyrivka, Mayak, Novokonomikne, Rodinske, Horodivka, Novokrainka, and other settlements.
The situation remains extremely tense, meaning the enemy has concentrated a very large amount of the resources they have. First and foremost, the occupiers are trying to make use of those resources. This is an extremely large number of manpower, in other words, disposable orcs. These could be occupiers with completely different levels of training, or hastily gathered, excuse my language, homeless people, mercenaries, criminals, convicts, I don't know, just anyone they could round up untrained, unequipped. Yes, unfortunately, you also encounter among them highly trained, highly skilled special forces units. Moreover, there are quite professional pilots and quite professional artillerymen.
In addition to infantry used for attrition, the Russians are actively employing various types of UAVs, trying to strike at the rear up to 30 kilometers deep.
In fact, the concept of a front line no longer really exists. There is simply a zone of activity, a contact zone, and enemy UAVs, various types of FPV drones, some strike wings. They can fly in 5, 10, 15, 20, even 30 kilometers. So there are all sorts of cases. The enemy really does use different tactics, but sometimes they succeed and sometimes they don't. But in most cases, these assault attempts are unsuccessful for the enemy.
Heavy fighting continues in other directions as well. On the Novopavlivka and Lyman sectors, there were 61 combat engagements in the past day. The enemy attacked the areas of Hrushivka, Zelenihai, Timirivka, Komishuvaka, Zelena Dolina, Kolodiazi, Torske, Yampol, and Hrihorivka. Activity remains on the Turetsky, Kupiansk, Southern Slobozansky, and Pridniprovsky directions. And despite the difficult situation in the skies over the Lyman area, an interesting episode occurred. 2 FPV drones simultaneously hunted an enemy strike UAV. Anti-aircraft gunners from the Steel Lions Brigade and pilots from the 53rd Brigade tried to destroy the Russian Molniya. In the end, the target was hit. The past 24 hours have also been among the most intense on the front. The enemy carried out missile and air strikes, conducted artillery shelling, and used drones. In turn, the defense forces of Ukraine are steadfastly holding the line and striking back. Over the past day, our fighters struck 9 areas where enemy personnel, weapons and equipment were concentrated, 2 artillery systems and 1 important facility belonging to the Russian invaders. The General Staff is not disclosing details for now and makes it clear to the Russians any attempt at an offensive will be destroyed. Every assault, every drone and every enemy vehicle is under fire. The Kremlin is in flames. NATO has launched large-scale exercises right on Russia's borders, and Finland is joining the game. The alliance's arsenal threatens a serious blow to Putin, and it seems this is only the beginning. Has the alliance decided to act preemptively under the cover of exercises? Exclusive details coming up in just a moment.
The international military exercise Southern Griffin 25 has begun in Finland. 1,600 servicemen from Europe and the United States are taking part in the maneuvers. Since the beginning of August, Finland's Ministry of Defense has stated that starting from the second half of 2025, US military personnel are actively participating in exercises on Finnish territory and in the Baltic Sea, thereby strengthening their military presence. Reports about alliance forces conducting exercises right near Russia's borders are coming from relatively unknown Russian sources. Top Russian propagandists, as well as the Kremlin officially, remain silent.
In recent years, Moscow has observed unprecedented NATO activity near Russia's western borders. The alliance expanding its operations justifies this by the need to deter aggression. The Russian side has repeatedly expressed concern over the buildup of the bloc's military presence in Europe. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has emphasized its readiness for dialogue with NATO on an equal footing, provided that the West abandons the militarization of the continent.
The Southern Griffin 25 exercises involve NH-90 transport helicopters and MD-500 light helicopters belonging to the UT regiment, as well as F-16 Hornet fighter jets in service with the Finnish Air Force. In addition, aircraft from the armed forces of various European countries and the United States will participate in the maneuvers. After Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, Finland, in order to ensure its own security, joined NATO almost immediately. Now, exercises are held here on a regular basis.
The Russian Federation frequently raises the issue of a potential armed military confrontation scenario with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO bloc, and the newly joined countries that have recently become members of it. Specifically, this refers to Sweden and Finland.
Let's at least recall those events when the so-called map of possible territorial claims by the Russian Federation against a number of Baltic countries appeared, and it even mentioned the possibility of Russian control over the Swedish island of Gotland.
These exercises are part of the implementation of the agreement between Helsinki and Washington on defense cooperation, under which the American side gained access to 15 Finnish military facilities. In a recent interview, Finnish President Alexander Stubb stated that the militarization and preparation of Finland for a possible invasion will continue as long as the war in Ukraine persists.
As I have always emphasized, we can't do anything about our geography. We have a history with Russia, and we will have a future with Russia. But right now, of course, relations are very complicated. In fact, there are no relations because of the war. But someday the war will end, and new relations will definitely be built. Finland will establish relations with Russia only after the war with Ukraine is over. Putin has united Europe, expanded NATO by bringing in Finland and Sweden, and has effectively increased NATO's defense spending from 2 to 5%.
The Russian Federation has repeatedly voiced its territorial claims and its intention to protect the Russian-speaking population in the Baltic countries and beyond. That is why Finland and other neighbors sharing a border with the Kremlin are acting with utmost vigilance, while Russia's main military resources remain focused on the war in Ukraine.
Various dates are being mentioned. These include, of course, 2026 and later dates as well. So NATO countries, specifically the closest neighbors, the countries bordering the Russian Federation or nearby neighbors, are trying to replenish their arsenals with the types of weapons that will enable them to actively counter possible Russian aggression.
Recently, the US deployed 3 B-1B bombers to Norway for NATO training, to practice coordination with allies, test combat readiness, and carry out a number of joint tasks. The Southern Griffin 25 exercise on the border with Russia will continue until September 12.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine Today. Join us now.